All right, boom. So, yeah, welcome. We're live now. But yeah, no, Jide. So what I was saying is, I think what I wanted to talk about was going off the conversation that we were having. This was, I think we were in the green room for the other podcast that we do for Travel and Turn Up. Or it was after we recorded, right? When we
Probably.
started talking about, I don't know, cancel culture, things related
Oh
to that.
yeah. I think it was after we recorded. Yeah, we talk a
What
lot of
was it?
shit after we record. So yeah, that might have been it.
Yeah. But share what you were sharing. Was it? I can't even remember how we started that conversation. But I was just like, this is definitely something that we need to talk about in full.
Oh, you gotta get me started, man, because I can't even come with the proper vim
Okay.
if I don't even know like the
Right.
if I don't even know
I
the
know
thing.
one thing that we were talking about was the story of the Apple executive Antonio something, the one that wrote Chaos Monkeys, and how he got hired. Then 2,000 of his colleagues signed a petition, and now he's fired again. But it was funny because, like, to give full context, so this guy used to work at Facebook. He basically wrote, you know, when you leave your job and you're getting that FU money, and he wrote this book called Chaos Monkeys, which was just like about Silicon Valley, about how everyone's, like an asshole, this and that. And I think the person, I don't know what he's like. He could be an asshole, or the personality that he was using to write this book was that kind of personality. Do you know what I mean? It was like one of those expose, Johnny Big Balls books. So I was like, cool. So yeah, so he writes this book and obviously gets his money. It becomes a New York Times bestseller, retires. And then years later now, Apple wanted to hire him to run one of their ads businesses. And they just hired him. They pretty much hired him. And then literally 2,000 of his colleagues were like, okay, hold on. But in this book, there's all this misogynistic stuff. There's maybe some racist stuff. There's like all kinds of stuff that obviously he said when he's quit his job and he's like, I can do whatever I want now. But now he has a job. He literally just got fired it didn't even take very long. But it's an interesting topic for me, just because it's not like he said anything new. And also, Apple knew, I think I take two sides on him. I don't think they should have hired him in the first place, because if you're going to say that you have certain values and principles, those values and principles should have stopped you from hiring someone that said all of that stuff in a New York Times bestseller. This is not like in a tweet from 2008 that nobody knew. He had 6 followers, everyone forgot about. He said this in a best-selling book 5 years ago, and he's done interviews, like huge interviews with people from Vox, people from, again, the New York Times, all kinds of publications talking about this book and explaining himself, because there was already an uproar about it 5 years ago when people were, like, oh, there's a lot of misogynistic stuff, there's this, there's that. And so he already explained all that stuff. Not that I'm saying his explanation is valid, but this stuff has been out there, right? And you knew it was out there, and then you hired him. And then now that his colleagues probably understandably complained, now you're firing him and you're writing this statement that's like, whoa, this is not compatible with our values. So when did you have the values? Did you have them before, or did you have them when it was expedient to have them? That's my question.
I guess, all right, so I guess I'm gonna come at this. My question is always, especially when I hear the cancel culture, I think that was it, right? It was like talking about cancel culture, and I was just like, it always confuses me when I hear this, because, like, personally, I don't think cancel culture is a real thing. Not in the real world. I mean, it's an internet thing. So, it's the same way how, like, on the internet, women don't date men that are shorter than 6'1". It's the same way how on the internet, you guys know the vibes. Like, there's a lot of things that are internet things. You know what I'm saying? That's just like, oh, that's an internet thing. Like, whatever. That's how I feel about cancel culture. So it's always shocking to me when I see people in real life situations try to bring that into that. Oh, I'm being canceled. I mean, whatever. Because I'm just like, the only people that I know that like cancel people or whatever, are powerful people. And the people I see complain about cancel culture are usually powerful people. But one thing I know about real life, again, not the internet, because I understand the internet's a whole different ball game. But in real life, powerless people have no power over powerful people. So powerless people cannot cancel powerful people. So that's how I see, like, when I always hear it, that always shocks me, because I'm like, again, internet thing, I'm with you. I understand. Like, it's totally possible for your blog to get shut down and people to block you on IG. All that is 100% possible and real. But I'm talking about real life thing, paying your bill, your mortgage every month, your rent every month, all that. That don't exist. Cancel culture doesn't exist there. What?
But I feel like there's an extent to which now, again, you let me know what you think, but I think the barrier between what's online and what is offline is very different to what it used to be. Now, anything you say anywhere, whether you said it now, whether you said it 20 years ago, someone can bring that up and it can become a thing. And not just that, I also feel like, particularly on Twitter, that I see there's this weird thing where as soon as someone says something, you're clicking to open the tweet, because what you really want to see, you want to scroll down to the comments and you want to see if he's been fired yet. because you know that's what's gonna happen. You know that if you see someone that said something or done something, within minutes or hours, the Twitter detectives will have got that person fired from their job. Something drastic will have happened to them. And so, not drastic actually, because we can talk about how it doesn't always pan out in real life. But I'm interested in how that fits in with what you were saying.
Well, again, it's when you see someone fired, right? It's never that a powerless person got a powerful person fired. What usually happens is another powerful person sees an opportunity, pounces on that opportunity to get their rival or whatever out of the way, so that they can, and then they see that, oh, he said that, let's get him out of here, and because they themselves want, whatever that person has, the job or whatever it is that they were doing. But never, ever, 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 even till this date, never have I seen a powerful person brought to their knees by a powerless person because they got a bunch of other powerless people to cancel them. I've never seen that happen till date.
But this was an example, though, no? Like ordinary Apple employees, because this guy would have been the boss of probably hundreds of people, if not thousands.
Yeah, okay, so now, okay, well, let's ask ourselves, like, I don't think you can say ordinary Apple employees, because again, I feel like it's people with a modicum of power. I think also the problem is, like, when we talk about this stuff, because you always, I see power discussions a lot online, like in terms of who has power, who doesn't have power. And you'll see people that say like a manager at Krispy Kreme is part of like the elite power class, right? And I'm like, a manager at Krispy Kreme earns like $60,000 a year. Like, what the hell's powerful about him? He's sure, he has more power than the people earning $10 an hour. I mean, but they're both some powerless people. Like, what I mean? They're both broke boys. Like why are we acting like one person is the, like holds some level of whatever? Like, so in that instance, yes, sure, cancel culture, because people can definitely lose their Krispy Kreme management positions off of something or whatever. But I get. And I guess also the other thing is, because usually when you see people, that's what it was. It was Joe Rogan. That's who it was. Yes, because when you see people like complain about it, it really be people that it's just like who the hell's canceling Joe Rogan? Who even has the? Or you see a U.S. senators like, I'm being canceled. Like your man Ted Cruz. I'm being canceled. Who is canceling Ted? Ted Cruz is still senator. There's nobody. In order to cancel Ted Cruz, you also have to have power to the level of Ted Cruz currently has to get him out of there. Yeah, and that's always the point,
But what's funny is that sometimes I think it's also the opposite, in that sometimes there's people that get quote unquote cancelled or lose their jobs or something happens to them, and they weren't even famous or big before it happened. They were just an ordinary person. Mm-hmm. But after it happens, now they get a book deal. Now they've got millions of dollars. Now they're rich. They were even better off after you got them fired than before.
It's a grift. Yeah, for sure. They get on like, let me see how I can come up off of this. No, it's a grift, 100%. Because their life before wasn't popping, but now they become like an expert in whatever complaining, whatever lane that they're in to complain. And now people are looking at them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's again, it's just back to, I've never heard a serious, I'm still, it throws me, right? Because now you're really seeing like serious people use it. You're seeing politicians use it. CEOs use it. People with like billionaires talking about, well, in this cancel culture society. Then I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never, ever, ever, ever seen it where a powerless person has canceled it. But you see it the other way around all the time. literally all the time. From then till now, all the time. In fact, we just saw it with old girl who wrote the 1619 project. She was trying to get I'm gonna blow her name. Her last name is Jones. So she wrote the 1619 project that showed up in 2019 in the New York Times, just basically detailing when the first slave ships arrived in America, how they had black people, black people basically have been in this country from the very beginning, from 1619, from when America popped off. So when white people got here, black people got here, basically, is the story that she told about how black people have been oppressed by a white system from then till now, right? Just drew that straight line. She won a Pulitzer over it, a MacArthur Fellow over it, international fame. Like I said, all this stuff, right? All this whatever, right? She's a teacher at the University of North Carolina. That's actually her alma mater. I don't know, teacher, maybe an associate professor, whatever she is. She has some sort of faculty job at University of North Carolina, which is also her alma mater. Yesterday, it was announced that University of North Carolina, because of pressure from conservative groups, politicians, all sorts of things, they didn't give her tenure at the university. And as you know, like 10 years is something that university people like professors really try to get, because I think it gives them like job security and like other stuff. But they're like, they actually originally gave her tenure, but then rescinded the offer that they gave her. That's really what happened, right? And like, to me, I'm like, yeah, that's cancel culture, right? Like that's a powerful person. Like that's cancel culture. You know what I mean? Like it's not like because you're like, well, she was an elite before. The only thing she had was an award they gave her that really doesn't pay her. Otherwise, she wouldn't need the tenureship, right? The whole point of all this stuff is to come up. Otherwise, she wouldn't need the tenureship. So the fact that that's cancel culture to me, like personally, Joe Rogan being told that we're not gonna we're gonna put we're gonna bleep out a word or we're gonna do some shit before we put it on Spotify. That's not cancel culture, my guy, because you can put it out, like, you know what I'm saying? Like so it always confuses me when I hear it, because I'm just like I'm just from the premise of I don't believe cancel culture is the actual thing. So it's difficult for me to like debate it and all this with people, because it's like, you know what I mean? It's to me, it's like debating a black supremacy or talking about, well, let's talk about racism against white people. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's one of those things where it's just difficult to even talk about, seriously, for me anyway.
What do you think, Gabriel?
I think it's interesting how you talked about this whole I guess just this whole idea of power, like only powerful people are able to cancel effectively. But what came to mind was just the ability of so-called powerless people to almost unionize and become a force that then influences the people in power to actually impose their will. So like, I don't even know if this is a good example, because I'm realizing that, nothing really has happened since then. But like Black Lives Matter, when it really became something like last year, and when people were really campaigning for it last year, it was only then that officials in power were taking things seriously. Because you know what would happen? All those so-called powerless people, they would have rioted, they would have smashed up the streets, they would have been at the end of their ropes. And after a particular extent, when these so-called powerless people are educated and are in the loop, there's only so much you can get away with before you have to actually bend to their will. So I guess it's almost sort of like a counter argument to the point that you're making, and that's what I was just mulling on.
Cool. Can I respond to that? Because the Black Lives Matter, I think, is a great example. Here's my response. Black Lives Matter is almost 10 years old. Like, how long ago was the Trayvon Martin? Because that's really when it kicked off. How long ago was the Trayvon Martin? Was that 2012? I think. Yeah, 2012. So it's almost 10 years. We're talking about it. You used the term yourself, Gabriel. You said when Black Lives Matter really kicked off. Let me ask you, why did it really kick off last year? It's because some powerful people got in front, like, brands were putting their names behind it, and oh yeah, we're Black Lives Matter too. I saw the Premier League putting the thing on the shirt and all that kind of stuff. Like, they could have done that 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it really, I mean, powerless people have been saying Black Lives Matter for a long time. It wasn't until powerful people try to co-opt it, then now it became like, oh, look at the movement. It's organic. It's it has life. And even to your point, like you said, since then, nothing has happened. It's not like that happened and then like a bunch of laws changed and a bunch of literally all we saw was powerful people come in, make some bread off of it, and then fly out. That was it. That was the beginning and the end of it. Like it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
but what do you think was the difference here though? Because we went through this in what 2014, 2015, 2016 with Ferguson and everything that came after that. And I think there was still, I remember people were tweeting about how J. Cole's going to the protests. So there was stuff there, but it didn't
protesting
off the same way as now.
Yeah. People have been protesting since. I mean, I remember when I was in college. You guys might have to look this up. Sean Bell, that was one that really hit us in New York. He was like engaged. He was out for his bachelor party. He got shot like 40 something times when he was out on his bachelor party in New York. This is in the mid 2000s, like 2005, maybe something like that, right? And like I remember, like, no, people hit the streets then. They were like, no, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. Da, 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 da. There was a lot of energy. And like, so since then, people have been doing like, and that's just for me. I'm sure people older than me have their own, you know what I mean? Like everyone has their own thing going back. Like, like people, I'm not saying people haven't been protesting. Of course, people have been protesting. But like, in the US here, I would use the NFL example. Colin Kaepernick took a knee. And literally, they got him out the league. A Super Bowl quarterback got him out the league. Like, normally, if you play in the Super Bowl, that's like, you can play until you're like 40, right? Because after you can't play no more, then they start hitting you with the leadership tag. And, you know what I'm saying? Oh, he's a great leader in the locker room, that whole thing or whatever. So they even give you that they give you the whole thing to get it through. Kaepernick was out the league before he was 32 years old, bro. That is unheard of for a quarterback that played in the Super Bowl. So, for that to happen, and then only for 2 years later, the NFL to turn around and become the biggest Black Lives Matter group in the country, it's foolishness. Like, let's really be honest about what we're talking about here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Okay, but what do you think about? Because I know when a lot of, like you were saying, the conservative groups that hate, all of this. Not specifically like Black Lives Matter stuff, but the whole cancellation, and they talk about woke culture. First of all, I don't even think people understand what the word woke means. People just say woke as like a dog whistle for liberal or left or black or just something in there, roughly speaking. But I also do get the flip side of it. Less so, talking about canceling particular people for things that they've done, but also because I think there is a real culture of people trying to get outraged over anything that happens, and at least they will attempt to get people fired, even though I know you're saying it doesn't always work if the people don't have power. But I remember I was trying to find it earlier. There was a situation. It's funny because of the way it worked out. I don't know what happened to the guy, but basically someone, I don't even know what the story was, but someone said something about a guy, and there's a story that came out. 2 minutes later, the guy's been fired from his job because people were tweeting. People had already sent emails to his workplace. It turned out it was completely false. Like, it was completely, the person came out and was like, okay, sorry, I made it up. And you're just like, okay, this completely normal guy. People were sitting on their hand. Like, it didn't take 20 minutes for you, a random person on the internet, to send an email to this guy's boss about a story you knew nothing about until 20 minutes ago. You just heard it. You drafted this email. You found, all these Twitter detectives, they found where you work. They found your national ID. They know where you go to school. They know what sports teams you play for. Right. Now they're sending letters to to anyone associated with you about something they have no evidence of. Because that's the thing with social media now. These things move so fast. You're fired before you've even woke up to hit your alarm clock. Like, the whole thing is wrapped up very quickly. And I do wonder what you think about that aspect of it, though, because I feel like that is something that legitimately has become a bit of a cultural thing. And then it also extends to like even shows. I remember with Friends, okay, to be honest, watching it back now, there's some stuff, I get it, but people are like, oh my gosh, these people, they were saying this and that. All these shows from like the past and things.
Chappelle Show, bro. Just
the Chappelle Show. Exactly.
Go turn on Chappelle Show now. You'll be like, oh.
Okay, so what do you think about those things, and what do you think should be done about those things?
Nothing.
Because simultaneously, I don't want to become one of the people that are like, oh my gosh, they're trying to cancel my stuff, because that would then sound a lot like the people that are saying, oh, there shouldn't be politics in football. I just want to sit down and watch the game. I don't want to see people kneeling down. Like,
can I? All right. So this is my. So I'm two responses. The first thing I'm going to say is, notice that this isn't a discussion in China, India, Nigeria, all countries where they don't have this Western guilt complex. Like, you guys saw the Batman movie with Bane, right? Batman, was it Batman Returns or whatever, right? And Bane is like kicking his ass in the beginning, and Bane's like, victory has defeated you. And like, I love that line because it applies to so much in life. Let me tell you something. Victory has defeated America and the UK and Canada and all these countries in certain ways, because countries that are struggling, like I said, you can't go to India talking about cancel culture or not struggling, but countries that, they're trying to get their way up. You can't go to Saudi Arabia talking about cancel culture. Like, what are you even talking about, guy? Nigeria, they tried to do cancel culture with NSARS. You saw how that went. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, there's countries that they're not even here to, like, even, entertain your joint, dog. Like, it's like, whatever. It works here in the US, in the UK, in Canada, in the West, I should say, because two things. The West is usually, Western countries are at a position now where, they've solved their Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People aren't really starving in the streets and that kind of thing. So they're looking internally to say, on a moral sense, are we ethically and morally holding up the standard that we said we're going to hold, right? So they're really sensitive to hypocrisy, quote unquote, sensitive to hypocrisy, sensitive to fairness. And, well, we said this, we have to make sure that, we're doing exactly as we said. They're sensitive to it. Not that, it drives them, but they're at least sensitive to it. Now, because that has happened, you have groups that are trying to take advantage of that sensitivity. But make no mistake about it, David, you just said they're reaching out, they're emailing people's boss and reaching out to people's sponsors and all like that, because you're still reaching out to people in power, hoping that they can use their power, to do whatever it is you want to do. The only thing is that now people in power might have an ear for you, mind you, have an ear for you depending on the situation. So human beings are smart. They're doing what they do. They're taking advantage of this situation. It's like, and this is the second thing I was going to say. Every animal in the wild has its own attack and defense mechanism. Every single one, right? If I've seen videos of 4 wildebeest surrounding a female lion and stomping her to death, that doesn't mean that the wildebeest can now go start hunting lions and stomping them. That's not what that means. That just means that if a lion catches itself in the wrong situation, you could get stomped to death, even though you're the one with power in that situation, right? It's just the law of nature, right? And it's the same thing here, right? Because at the end of the day, people, again, in powerful positions, that doesn't mean you can't get stomped to death by some zebras if you get caught saying the N-word, or you got some blackface on or something and they catch you, because you're just in the wrong place. You're where you're not supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you're but you were just not supposed to be there. So yes, it can happen. But however, I do want to come back and say this. This is only possible in specific countries in a specific moment in time. So even that should let you know that it's a very temporary strategy. Because if anything ever really popped off and countries were back at war, or they had like other more important things to focus on, well, nobody give a fuck about that. Like, so-and-so used the N-word, fight. Okay, like, I don't care. Like, they care now because they have time, essentially is what it is. But when they stop having time, then, you're right back to where you were.
That's funny. So you think if we get World War III, everybody's going to stop?
Yeah, right. We're going right back to where we were at.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Gabriel?
I think it's quite interesting in terms of the points that you're making, because a lot of the countries that you're listing out, there's obviously there's a massive difference in the standards of living. But one of the main differences, which I've actually been kind of doing some reading up on, because I've had to do like a lot of research for essays and my dissertation, was kind of how instrumental the internet has been in educating us about the system that we live in, and then actually educating us about the truth to alternatives. Because once we are kept in the loop, it's harder for institutions, and it's harder for the system, and it's harder for all of these big names to say that they have integrity, but we can pull up things that you were saying a couple months ago or a couple years ago, and then now hold you to that standard. I mean, bear in mind, like one of the disadvantages of this kind of digital space is the lack of attention span, even the decreasing attention span. Because you see one thing and you think that it's solved, or like, oh, raw, like we've got that the diversity report, and we've seen that, oh, we need more black workers, but we haven't really. There's a lack of accountability to that, because there's so many things that we're finding wrong. We're just kind of rushing from issue to issue, but we are being more aware of that. But to be honest, I guess even the counter argument to that is, I don't know how much more aware I can get of something before I start taking on quite extremist views. Like I've started reading, just for a bit of context, I've started reading Malcolm X's autobiography.
Yeah,
you know what? He makes some very good points.
Jide was on that book. Was it last year?
Bro, I know, man. And the thing is, I read that book. First, I read that book, I was in middle school, which I don't know what years they are for you guys, but between the ages of like 11 and 13, maybe. So I was in middle school, and like, yeah, man, that book, because even then, this is in the 90s, right? This is in the 90s. I'm like, hold on, this seems really accurate. And like, even now, as you were reading it last year, it's still accurate, bro. Like, he knew what he was talking about. So, yeah, I like the autobiography of Malcolm X. I definitely suggest that to everybody.
I'm interested in what you think of the flip side of that, though, because I agree. I think the internet's been an incredible, I'd say, like a force for good in terms of whether we're looking at the Arab Spring, whether we're looking at like NSARS, the whole this most recent election campaign, other things that are happening now or recently. I think the internet is so good in helping people to be able to organize around issues that they care about and things like that. But I'm also interested in the flip side of it, where a lot of it becomes performative. And but it's a mix. I think, okay, so on one hand, there's definitely people that are just grifting. They're just like, oh my gosh, I have to care about anything that there is to care about. They're gonna say they care about it so that they can use it to, find some way to make money or something like that. But then on the flip side, there's these weird people that, if I can't remember, I think there was a UK influencer, Gabriel, you might be more familiar with this. I think there was some kind of UK influencer. Oh, it was Melissa's Wardrobe. Yes. Okay. So some random person, this girl is like, she's a stylist for Stormzy, but she just does like influencing and stuff online. Someone's messaging her on Instagram and like, why haven't you been speaking about Palestine? It's like some oh my God. It reminds me a lot of the way they always go and ask Ja Rule about what's happening in Iraq. Or like, so I don't know why they're going to random people to ask about like why. I don't know. I think there's a balance. So on one hand, yes, there's people that have an audience and you have a platform and you can reach people with information. So maybe you do have a responsibility to share things. But on the flip side, I think two things. One is that you can't expect everyone to know or care about every single issue under the sun, especially because there's so many things. And then the second part of that I'd add is also that, particularly with some of these things, if you don't know, because again of just what we were talking about now, of the speed with which people get cancelled for saying the wrong thing, if you start speaking about an issue and you don't even know what the issue is exactly about, if you say the wrong thing, your job is finished within 20 minutes. Before that thing is finished uploading, if you put your phone down to charge,
you get really
wake up and it could be gone, because you might not know exactly what it is that you're saying.
So again, is that really true? Because I see Wonder Woman, she tweets all the time about how the Israeli military is being oppressed and like, whatever.
Okay, but that's what you're saying about how she has power, though.
Exactly. She's still going to be Wonder Woman in the next movie. When's the next movie coming out? Because she's going to be Wonder Woman again. You know what I mean? Earning her millions.
But I'm saying for a normal person. But how is that?
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, okay, some of the things that she is saying about this particular issue, if you said the kind of things that she was saying, I don't know if you get away with it.
I don't have the power. But again, so we're back to the original. We're right back to the original point that we were making, right? She can say whatever we want because she has the power structure behind her. So therefore, no one can cancel her. If I had shit, I don't even need that much. If I had like $10 million to my name, I don't give a fuck. I'll say whatever. Like, you know, whatever. Like, what are you gonna do to me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
to be honest, that does remind me of but you know, the not Ben and Jerry, sorry, it's the other guy, the pizza guy. What's that pizza restaurant where the guy
Papa John's?
Yeah, Papa John's.
Oh,
like an earnings call or some meeting, the guy just starts using the N-word. Isn't he still there?
I think he still has. So it's like Shaq bought like a big piece of the equity, and Shaq is now the face of Papa John's, more or less, like in a business sense, right? But I do think that he still has like a really large share of the equity of the company. Yeah, I really did. You know, so you know, yeah,
that's funny. But I don't know. I still think there's a balance though, because I think sometimes people are too quick to jump on all these things. Like almost anytime something happens in the world. And also what I don't like about this, and I want to know if you guys see this in the US as well. I feel like stuff happens to people that are not black. Next thing you know, everyone's like asking the black people, why haven't you said something about this? Why don't you know about that?
Yeah, of course it happens.
I just woke up. Oh my God. And like and the second part of it is, you know, when people are like, oh, the media's not speaking about it. How did you want me to know then? If the media wasn't speaking about it, how was I supposed to know? Who was gonna tell me about what was happening in some part of the world? We're using the same internet. I'm just on Twitter. Like,
let me this is what it is, right? The masses are the masses for a reason, right? Because there's a lot of us, you know, like that's why we're the masses, right? You know what I mean? So I think that what you get in those situations is people want to feel like two things. Number one, people want to feel like they have more power than they really do. So people want to feel like, you know what? If all of us just got together and we moved, I mean, black people say this about ourselves. If all of us just got together and moved in one accord, we'll take over the world. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sure. Okay. Maybe. I mean, you know, maybe it's possible. But
I feel like things are slowly happening. I feel like I have to back myself up, because if you're right, then my dissertation's in tatters. You know what I mean? Like, I have to back it up. Like,
go ahead.
I go back to my point like earlier. Like, we're at a point where things are slowly, we're slowly hitting the same wall, but we're recognizing that we're doing it. Like, people are getting tired of raising awareness, and they're realizing that they are exhausted. Where in other generations, that's all they were doing, and now we're recognizing it, and it's only then that we can recognize the position that we are in, that we actually start to see change. We start to take more, like, we start to take different measures. But I do understand where you're coming from, but I wouldn't tell you that we're completely powerless and there's nothing that we can do if we don't get rid of masses. Otherwise, we're really stuck in a system. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think we're completely powerless. I think the answer is to become the power structure, right? I mean, and there's a process to do that. In today's world, like, you know, money is probably the number one way, but, you know, money, political will, all these like different, like, you know, the things that people can do. And that's how you go from powerless to the powerful. Like, all you have to do is look at Israel and the Jewish people. Like, collectively, Jewish people around the world in 1950 were kind of in a powerless position. Collectively, those same Jewish people around the world in 2021 are in a powerful position, right? So what happened over the last 70 years that made one thing not true and one thing true? Like, there's a process to that. So, and the same thing you see with the Chinese now, I mean, realistically, is, you know, if you look at where China was, or the Chinese as a group in 1975, it was kind of like, you know, 2021, it's a different story, right? So, you know, for us, it could be the same thing. Like in 2065, black people could be in a very powerful position around the world and all these things, but it's not going to be because, you know, the powerless banded together and somehow became powerful. No, it's going to be because, you know, like the powerless became the powerful through the means of how people hold power, wealth, influence, land, like all the things, you know, military, all the things that make people powerful. Like that's what's going to change. But yeah, I won't say your thesis is wrong, Gabriel. I agree with it. I just think that, especially the biggest problem I think with young people, and I'm including myself in this, is the fact that you know, we just don't have the experience on the years on the ground, basically, that older people have. So when we look at life, there's things that we look at, we're like, oh no, this would just change if we just do this, and not realizing like people have bled
People
for
were trying to
60
do
years. That's what I'm saying. People
Yeah.
have bled for 60 years to get to where they are now. There's no way they're just going to
I
turn
am not my
around.
ancestor, people.
Right. Turn around now because some 30-year-old guy is saying, "Oh, I read and fuck you, dude." Like, what are you talking about? Like, people have been bleeding since 19 whatever to get to where they are now. Nah, bro, it's not going to work like that. So I think that's the number one problem that young people have is and again, I'm including myself because I remember, and I'm going to bring up Trayvon again. I remember when that happened, people hitting the streets, people writing letters like, "No, we're going to change it. It changes now," and that other stuff, right? We're almost 10 years later, and not only has stand your ground laws not changed, they've actually expanded. Like, you know what I mean? Because you realize how power works. Like, if you really want to change it, you got to get your sleeves dirty and you got to get in the elected positions. You got to make sure that powerful interests are aligned with you. You got to make sure money is aligned with you. A bunch of things have to happen before you start doing the change that you're talking about. And like, I think that, you realize this as you kind of get older and as you kind of get into it. But like, yeah, man, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be because everyone now is all of a sudden aware and then they demand change for something you see all the time. Let's demand change, and then change happens. It doesn't work like that. It's never worked.
Okay, on a more micro scale, how do you think this works within specific institutions or within like workplaces? So, for example, I was just thinking off the back of what Gabriel was saying about how the internet has enabled a lot of things, and I think the internet has also meant that people are a lot more aware about what's going on in the world, particularly younger people, as an example, people in schools, people at whatever age. And I was watching a video earlier today on Twitter where basically there's this girl, I think she's a student, and she was putting up like posters saying Free Palestine, stuff like that around her school. And apparently there was a teacher that said something like, again, I don't know, I just see in a viral video, the teacher was saying something like, "Oh, the life of one Israeli person is worth like 1,000 Palestinians," or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, the head teacher was now coming to say that she should pull down all of her posters because they can't be having political things at school. And I don't know. I was very mixed on that because on one hand, I do understand the putting up posters part. Like, especially because if you start doing that, next thing you know, someone that you don't agree with is going to come and start putting MAGA posters or some other kind of posters up all around the school. And then how are you going to feel when, they're putting up, "Oh, deport the brown people" posters and things like that. So I understand maybe, okay, let's stay out of it completely. Let's not do those things. But then at the same time, I'm also like, the institution of what a school is was set up to, one, educate people about these things, and also for discussions about politics and about what's going on in the world. And it's about you understanding different people's perspectives, all of those things. And I'm worried that at a school level that we're not giving kids enough space to tangle with ideas and also hear opposing opinions. Because I know, for example, this stuff with Palestine is very tricky because Israelis and people that support Israel feel very strongly about one thing. People that support Palestine feel very strongly about one thing. And maybe it's not as clear cut as some of the racial issues that Black people face, as an example, where you stand on someone's neck or you just kill Trayvon. And I know,
you know what?
What I'm just saying is that there is, because on the other side, I don't think it's just about, when I say the other side, I mean like the people that support Israel. I don't think it's just about what happens on an individual level. There's also like nationalism. There's all the stuff that's tied into it is way beyond the individual situations. Whereas I feel like with a lot of the Black issues, we can just look at that individual situation and be like, this is this, this is that. And it's not about some whole additional identity and belief system. And there's not a lot more wrapped up in that than you just look at this thing and you can say, this is this and this is that. And also, I don't feel like me saying this shouldn't have happened, like me speaking up about that is going to be as tricky to navigate as speaking about some other kinds of issues. So that one thing I just want to say is that there's that one side with schools, but then also in the workplace as well, because I know that, again, not that you want to go and have that specific conversation at work or things like that, but I remember Basecamp as an example recently, if you guys have heard of that company, they put out this new policy where they're like, we're not going to be talking about politics or anything like that anymore. This is a technology company. You come here to work. We do this for our customers. That's it. So they're basically saying, you know, you're just a cog in the system. You punch your clock, you go home. All that other politics stuff, you do that there. But I think the issue with that, again, is that there's a lot of implicit stuff that is going to be allowed to exist. Whatever the views of like the founders or the managers or the people that have the power, as you were saying, Jide, whatever their views and perspectives are, is kind of how things are going to be. And if you create rules that say the other people aren't allowed to speak up about it, or the other people aren't allowed to engage with those issues, then what happens then? But go on, Gabriel, I'll let you say what you want to say.
I feel like that the first argument that you made, in the sense of let me just kind of like rehash it. The point that you made about a person, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, the person who put up a poster about Free Palestine on 1 week may now be met with like someone kind of putting up like a MAGA poster the other week, and kind of allowing those two things to exist in the same space. I don't think it would necessarily make sense to have this idea that freedom of speech should be neutral, because at the end of the day, like, when it maybe not in the current system, because this system's kind of ruled by white supremacy, surprise, surprise. But when you are neutral, it's easier to be oppressive. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to messages such as Free Palestine, which isn't an oppressive message, it can be I don't know what the right word is, but it can suppressed. That message is suppressed for the sake of also wanting to suppress quite suppressive messages such as MAGA, like Make America Great Again. Like, even by itself, it may not be suppressive, but how it's come to be, and what it stands for, is oppressive to other people. So, like, in the sense of the best way I could describe it is, it's like the idea is in my head, but I can't 100% explain it. But I don't know if you get what I mean, in the sense that, like, the point that people were making last year is that, and even like when it came to Palestine, is that you can't be neutral. You can't be neutral to these kind of things, and these messages have to be spread. And you can't say that, oh, for the sake of freedom of speech, or for the sake of seeming quote unquote fair, you can't have such messages posted out, because oppressive messages can also be equally posted out, because it shouldn't be a case of neutrality, but it should be a case of the system defending people's basic rights and being against oppression. But obviously, it's a bit techie to argue that because our system of white supremacy that exists is oppressive.
I feel like what I would say about that, and I'll let you speak after Jide, what I find difficult is just that, okay, I agree, I 100% agree, and I agree because I believe that we're right. Like, what I believe about this particular issue, I believe that is correct, and I believe that objectively, this is how it is. But at the same time, I also know that there's a lot of people on the flip side of some of these things that say they're the oppressed people. When you have MAGA and a lot of these things, they're like, we are oppressed. Oh, you're policing what we get to say. Oh, and again, of course, that oppression, you not being allowed to say something on the internet, is not the same as, you know, black people being enslaved for 100 years. That level of oppression is not exactly the same. But what I'm saying is, I also think we should be careful with the kind of precedents that we set. With this particular situation, just to clarify my perspective, it's not so much that, oh, she shouldn't be able to have that discussion. It's more putting up posters. I think maybe as an alternative, why don't you have like debates around that topic, or have open forums where people can share and actually have discussions about that? I think that's different from just allowing anyone to just go up and put posters about a cause that they identify with, which I even though I agree with this cause, let me give you the best example I can. Barack Obama, when he was president, there is a bunch of stuff that Obama did that I agreed with the principle of what he was doing, but I disagreed with the fact that he was doing it. Why? Because 4 years later, Trump came and did the exact same things Obama did, but for different causes. So, for example, Barack Obama signed more executive orders than like any president before him had been signing. And those executive orders is basically saying if he wants to get something done and the Congress is not going to support him, he's just going to sign this order and he's going to do it anyway. When I believed in what he was doing it for, the reasons he was doing it, of course I support it. Why? Of course, like let's do it, because he can't get it through. He can't get these bills through. He can't make stuff happen. He's going to do it anyway. Cool. 4 years later, now Donald Trump, when people are trying to hold him back and say, no, don't do this, he will wake up in the middle of the night and sign an executive order. So he's doing stuff that Obama set a precedent for by doing more than any previous president. And then obviously when someone else comes along that's doing it for things I don't like, I can see how bad this is. And I can see why maybe nobody should have done it. Like I would rather, okay, maybe Obama doesn't get to do some things if it means that Trump did not get to do a lot of the things he did. So that's more what I was saying in terms of the balance between that. But go on, Jide.
Well, I was gonna say, so we're back to the power discussion, right? So let me ask you a question, David. If you had a stomach worm, right, like a tapeworm in your stomach, right, where every time you ate food, you know, the tapeworm was taking some of your food and it was fucking you up, like because you know you had a tapeworm or whatever, right? And you had two options to say when somebody came to you and said, "Hey, David, take this medicine; it's gonna change the tapeworm," and you're like, "Absolutely, bro, I'm gonna take it." And someone else goes, "Whoa, hold on, David, hold on. I think we need to be neutral. If you're gonna take that tapeworm medicine, then I also think you need to take this other medicine." Or so. It sounds ridiculous, don't it? Like the whole point of taking the medicine is to get rid of the fucking tapeworm. Anything else is a discussion outside of that. The whole point of the Free Palestine poster or the Black Lives Matter poster or the this or the that or whatever is to challenge the status quo. So the idea that you're saying I can't do this because it's neutral for the other side or whatever is just saying I want to keep, because what you have to ask yourselves is if nothing changes, right? If you say, okay, fine, I'm frustrated, nothing changes, let's just keep going as it's going, who will be the happier party? You know what I'm saying? If nothing changes, the person in status, the person with the power will be like, yeah, cool, I won. And that's exactly what I wanted to happen. I wanted nothing to happen. So I'm glad that nothing has happened. Great. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not advocating for neutrality. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but like I'm saying this is why
she could say that with her mouth. Like, I think you should have those discussions. You should definitely have.
I agree with what Gabriel was saying, is that the neutrality thing is bullshit. Because if you're saying that, and I think that's why people try to put pressure on people with the whole morality thing and things like that. But what you have to realize is that morality is a very what is it? Morals is what you think is wrong, and ethics is what society thinks is wrong. Like I think that's how it's posed or whatever. But morality is a very individual thing, because like if that person just doesn't feel like Israel's morally in the wrong, then it's just like, it's whatever. But I do think the power discussion is an important one because, it's not a 1-for-1 to be like, well, if you put up this Free Palestine poster, then I have to let everyone else put their own political views up. Like, no, you don't. Why do people say that? No, you don't. There's no rule that says that at all. Like, why?
No.
Why
okay. But I feel like there's been situations, and I think this is the difference, right? When you as a minority put stuff up, is different from when the majority put stuff up. And there have been situations, it's not even just like this is a hypothetical. There's been situations where people are putting stuff up or saying stuff or creating an environment that is oppressive to you because they believe that this is just innocuous, this is just some normal thing, right? But as a minority that actually what you're doing here is oppressive, and the way that you're using rights that maybe everyone has is like disproportionately affecting me in a way that if I did the same thing, it would affect you. That girl putting up Free Palestine posters does not affect, apart from if there's Israeli kids or people from that
even if there's Israeli kids
school. No, but what I'm saying is like that is not going to have the same effect on them as if someone did the opposite, and I get that. But what I'm saying is I can also imagine things that seem more innocuous than that being allowed to fly because they already do fly. And then how do you make the argument against those things? Because I definitely agree that we should have platforms and we should have spaces for people to have those discussions, especially in schools and also in workplaces. Like I'm 100% for that. That's definitely what I believe should be happening. But there's just a part of me that wonders I just know there's so many of these things I would hate, and I know would be 10 times worse if someone did not even something like that. But do you know what I mean? If there was something
but David, there's
that
no
was like a
rule that
dog
says
whistle
they have to
against,
do that. You get what I
but they
mean?
do it already, is what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is like, so the base camp thing, for example, right, where they're like, oh, we don't want to talk politics now at work or whatever, right? And they're saying, and the reason is because, well, if we let this person talk politics, then we have to let that person talk politics, and we can't choose one politics over the other. I'm like, why can't I never understood that argument? Why can't you?
Yeah, but see, policies like that, and this is kind of what I'm saying. Policies like that, really, the only voice you're oppressing is the minority voices.
Correct.
That policy is not actually neutrality, and that's why
it's not at all.
I don't advocate for neutrality. People should be able to have discussions, because when you have policies that no one can speak, if the people in power have one particular view, that's what it's going to be.
The status quo is already you've chosen the side. You know what I mean? And I get it. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather people just be honest, right? And say, this is the problem I had, and why Basecamp, they lost some investors, and I mean, they, people were like,
I think it was a third or 2/3 of all their employees quit.
Yeah, they left, and I mean, people were like, well, they got rid of the dead weight and all. I'm like, okay, cool, like, but I'd rather them say it with their chest, like, you know what I mean? I'd rather Basecamp just come out and like, because I've come to appreciate that level of discourse a lot better. If Basecamp came up with a statement that says something to the court of, like you said, look, that's why I don't even have a problem really with a lot of right wingers, because they're at least saying what they feel like. Look, we feel like the American system is the best in the world. It's not perfect, but we love it. It's allowed us to build this billion-dollar company. So therefore, we're going to keep the status quo as we are. Don't discuss the politics. We're cool as it is. And if you don't like it, move somewhere else. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what can I really say to that? You know what I mean? What can I really say to that? You know what I mean? I get it. Hey, you don't want to change nothing about what's going on because it's bringing in money for you. Cool. I understand that 100%. But for you to say, well, we're committed to, everyone's personal blah, 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 and the rights and the human rights and Basecamp is whatever. So therefore, we're going to say no politics at all because that's the only way that it allows us to remain neutral. Like, no, bro, that's nonsense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what, and I think people see through that because it's like, come on, man, it's nonsense. You know what I mean? But I get it, because people want to act like the world was created yesterday, right? Like, everyone's equal, guys. Hey, everyone's equal. We don't say anything now. It's like whatever. But it's like, hey, man, like, and that's why I realized about power levers, because it's really easy to act like the world was created yesterday when you're the one in power. So I'm like, all right, you know what? That's how the game is played. I get it. So let me get into some power, and I will also start acting like the world was created yesterday, because that's how you do.
Yeah, that's why there's a
what you were saying. What you were saying is exactly what I was saying with the Apple thing, though, because that's why I was saying, which one of these were your values? Was it your values when you hired the guy, or is it your values when you fired the guy? Because when you hired him, knowing that he wrote this New York Times bestseller 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure you weighed up. Okay, he said this, but he's gonna make us this much money because he's gonna run our ads, our whole ads business, and he's going to add all this value, right? Then how many minutes later, 2,000 of your employees are like, we are not working with this guy. Then you fire him, because and what's funny is they are going to have to pay him, I'm 100% sure it's like at least 7 if not 8 figures to leave, because he didn't do anything. Like, it's not like, not as in like as an employee. You just hired him, he hasn't said anything, now you're letting him go. You have to make up some kind of reason why you're firing him. Obviously, he's now going to take them to court, and they're going to have to pay to settle it. But now it's like, it makes me, I don't know, it's interesting, because now it's like they must have factored that in at the beginning in terms of this value. Because if hiring this guy was now worth to let him go 8 or 9, like 7 or 8 figures,
they wouldn't have let him go.
But I think they would have known that, though. Or
but what I'm saying is, if it's untenable monetarily, right? To your point, if letting him go meant like a real hit to the company monetarily, they would just wrote it out. They wouldn't have let him go. They would just be like, all right, well, y'all got to deal with that, basically.
But it's crazy to think that this is why I'm less happy about it. I mean, happy, but I'm just very wary now of Apple and what they say their values are, because it seems like
Yo, Dave, you sound like you're 7 years old, bro.
no. Come on, no. Look, here's what I'm saying. The difference is because look, there are some companies that have.
Hold on, what do you think Apple's values are? Let me ask. I need to start there so I know where you're coming from.
Okay, no, but here's the difference, right? This same summer, wasn't Apple handing out like $1 billion?
Bro, what do you
we're gonna
think
support all
Apple's
these black companies,
values
we're gonna
are?
do this and that. No, but I think companies are allowed to have values and stand by them.
I agree with you. I'm just asking you a very
especially all the racist ones.
What do
all the
you
racist
think?
companies, their values don't change.
What do you think Apple? We're talking about a very specific company. What do you, David, think Apple's values are? I would like to start
right now.
Now,
it just sounds like money. It sounds like greenbacks.
Now I could have told you that. Yeah, I could have told you that years ago what their value was.
But here's what I think the difference or what the issue is, because now all of the things you were saying that were your values just seem like virtue signaling. So when you were giving away, come on, but all of the money they were giving away to black businesses, black creators, they were investing
Apple's the most profitable company of all time.
I know.
They have like $1 trillion in cash, bro. Like, what are you talking about?
But they didn't have to do all of those things. They don't have to. They don't have to take a stand for certain issues. So what I'm saying is, when you do take a stand for certain issues and you make it seem like you care about certain issues, and then simultaneously you go and hire a guy that does the complete opposite against those issues because he can make you more money, it means that none of that mattered. However, there's some other brands that you might think do have some values. Or do you think no company on earth has any values?
I think it depends on the company. If you tell me the company, I'll tell you what their values are.
Okay,
it depends on the company.
What about Nike or Nike?
Oh, yeah, Nike's values are money. 100%.
You don't think they have like real values?
No,
I don't know.
Nike that has children making their shoes for however long.
Okay.
You know, like,
I'm not saying all values. I'm not saying all values, but
so what values are you talking about?
So, for example, they supported Colin Kaepernick. They supported what's her name, Semenya, the athlete. Yeah, no.
Yeah, so they supported two athletes.
No, what I'm
saying,
they're
a company that sells athletic apparel,
no.
bro. Like, who are they going to support?
No, they took stands over issues that they didn't need to. They were making money regardless.
Right.
They took a stand. Yeah, but they lost fans and people that would have bought their stuff. Maybe not.
Let me ask you something, right?
Groundbreaking numbers. Wait, hold on. Let me. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that. Oh my gosh, they're gonna fall apart. Things gonna happen, but I'm pretty sure their stock dropped that day. Like stuff happened. Like I think there are things that some companies that say they have values do that align with those values. Nike
David, this is really this conversation is making me look at you completely. I can't believe you really sat there at your big age and told me that you think Nike. Of all people,
I'm saying no, but they put out things.
You know
they
what's so
say
funny about
we
it?
stand for these things, and they put together campaigns that fit with that. So this is okay. Here's the difference, and this is why this is the parallel I'll draw. Okay, so imagine that Nike is now having these campaigns that are saying, okay, we care about Black Lives Matter, we care about these causes. They're doing campaigns for those causes. They're putting, to an extent, their stock price on the line or their value on the line for these things. Cool. Then simultaneously, they go and hire Steve Bannon to be their new head of. Do you know what I mean?
They wouldn't do that because that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt their actual thing they value, which is their bottom line. That's what they. I'm literally told you what they value.
No, but
2 minutes
that
ago.
just happened with Apple, though.
What do you mean?
I'm not saying that guy.
No, Steve Bannon is not. No, but that's why they think because he's not Steve Bannon.
Okay, no,
they would. Okay. Yeah, they hired him with that.
Plenty of other executives that are known for having said certain things.
But he wasn't known for that. People pulled out a book that he wrote with some lines.
This wasn't like some hidden book, though. This was.
I'm not saying it was hidden. I'm not saying it was hidden. I'm not saying
it's the reason he's famous. This book now.
I get that.
Because he was just an engineer at Apple. The reason everyone knows who he is because he wrote this big book.
I get that.
And what I'm saying is, what Apple looked at this book, looked at this guy, and was like, this looks like a sound business decision.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, both before and after, you're making all this noise about how you support women, how you support Black people, how you support But then in between all of that, when it's expedient or when the guy that does all of that stuff is going to make you some money, you're going to hire him anyway.
So what do you think the value is?
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying, though.
And what I'm saying is, why do you think this is why this is why you're like, oh, because Nike. I like I said, tell me there's some I'm not gonna lie, there's some companies, there's some startups that you see that you're like,
what
you know
about,
what,
like,
this
Ben
is
and
a
Jerry's as an
beautiful
example?
Ben and Jerry's is a good example. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're a niche product and a niche thing. You know, they make a good amount of money, and the people who run it or think it have very strong views about very specific values within their value structure, and they don't go outside of that. I'm with you 100%.
So they have
correct.
values, yeah.
Specific
That's not just money.
values that goes specific values that they don't go outside of that. So you know,
but you
it's a
can
very
see why
white
I
liberal
would
company.
be-
So their white liberal values, like that's where they are with it. And I get that. I respect it because hey, you know, hey, it's better than nothing. I'm gonna go back to the Nike thing, right? For you to sit here and tell me that they supported Colin Kaepernick, Nike is the exclusive provider of NFL jerseys, and they've been that for like 5 years now. For you to tell me that they supported Colin Kaepernick while continuing to print NFL jerseys by the millions.
They gave him a big check, though.
While continuing, and they sold his jersey with the other NFL jerseys they're selling.
Oh, no. But, okay, the difference I'm saying, though, is that his job wasn't paying him, and they went out of their way to pay him.
Bro, that was a transactional deal.
No, but it means something, though.
Because it means that they were going to make money off of it, which they did.
Oh, no, but also at the time, there was an issue, though, with them.
What was the issue? What was the issue?
No, I can't remember exactly what it is.
Because there was no issue. That's why you care.
No, not from Nike's perspective, but
that's
from
what
the
I'm saying.
NFL's perspective. The NFL had
no
an
issue, bro.
They had an issue with Nike supporting him at the time.
I'm sure it ruffled some feathers. Let's look into that.
But look, but what I'm saying is, okay, they put they still obviously do the deal, they still do the shirts, blah blah blah. But temporarily, there was a part where that was not so secure. And they put themselves in that position voluntarily. They did not have to do that.
Let me ask you something. If Nike knew that them supporting Kaepernick would have meant that they lost out on the NFL exclusive jersey agreement to Adidas. Have to be that big. But that's too big? Hold on, that's too big.
What I'm saying is, right, they lost some money and part of their stock price at the time that they did not need to do.
But they gained it. Hold on, the dude sat in the room, sat there, and they said, hey, what's going to happen if we do this? Well, you know, we might lose some.
They made it back from just being as a business. Here's what I'm saying: their trajectory is going up. They don't need to take dips and dives. They don't need to do all this extra stuff. All of this,
I disagree.
All the things that they do, to the extent that they do them, I don't think that Nike needs to do that to be the company that it is.
I 100% disagree. It's like when drug dealers give Thanksgiving turkeys to everyone in the neighborhood. Like, they don't have to do that. You know what I mean? It's a loss that day. You know, they lost money. What are you talking about? The whole point of doing that is so that people like you can argue that Nike got value. That literally they did their job. That worked out perfectly for them. Perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. They didn't lose no sponsorships. They kept all their agreement and deals, and they were able to pick up an audience and act like they got. Oh my God! That whoever did that Kaepernick commercial should get a raise because it worked out perfectly. Like, you know, like, come on, what are you talking about?
So you're skeptical of like most businesses there, but I still don't get what the difference is.
Skeptical is a wrong word.
I don't get the difference for you then between that and Ben and Jerry's, because I think if anything, it's only because Ben and Jerry's are a bit more vocal, but I don't know. Like, but what to you makes that difference?
Specific. I was very clear. Ben and Jerry's, I feel like, is very specific to their values. Like, for example, it would shock me if Ben and Jerry's was a contributor to the National Republican platform. Nike contributes to the National Republican platform. That's not a shock to me. It will shock me if Ben and Jerry's did, and they don't. Well, exactly. That's not a shock. Nike contributes to Dems and Republicans like every other major company does. They give to both because their value is money and influence and access. That's what they value.
I get that.
Ben and Jerry's, like I said, very specifically, right? They have they're a very white, progressive, liberal kind of company, right? And those are the values, like, you know, the whole climate change and the whole, you know, the whole thing, you know, the thing that they do. They were the first, I think, they introduced like vegan flavors of the. Like, I get it, you know, they got the whole thing or whatever. And I'm
even
not
like black issues, no,
huh?
Like black issues as well, no.
In the white progressive way, yes, you know what I mean. Like, no, and that this is not to shit on nobody, but you know what I mean. Like,
no,
I get it. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I'm not. I can't ask those people to, you know, to sacrifice everything on my cause. Like, cool, I get it. You know, like that's what they're doing. So I'm not here to pick a fight with Ben and Jerry's. I love Ben and Jerry's. I used to Ben and Jerry's all the time. So I'm not here to whatever. I accept and I understand where they're coming from. I look at their situation and I can say, okay, I see what they value. Yes, they're a company, so obviously they want to be a going concern and value money, but also they value their very specific issues and they're passionate about it. Love it, appreciate that. Outside of that, I have no expectations of them.
Okay, fair. Gabriel, I'm gonna let you both speak and then we'll wrap up.
I think I lost track at one point, but what brought me back was when Jide brought the show. Nah, man, it felt like Mark Zuckerberg being grilled at the Supreme Court. Like those kind of vibes, man. Just bringing it back to the same question. But nah, today was a really good discussion. Like as always, just kind of talking about these things, it brings more. I mean, it educates me and it like edifies me because there's things that I learn and perspectives and just things that I learn when. Nah, man, I'm just so overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Like in some way, I can't make full sentences anymore. But
fair play.
Yeah,
it's good. This is how I hope the audience feels the same way.
I also too. I'm just really shocked. Dave, you really shocked me today talking about you feel like not have some value. I'm sorry.
No, but I think companies can have values, and
sure.
I also like to think that the companies that I like and support have values or have my best interests at heart at some level. Not every company. There's a bunch of companies I just shop there because I shop there, right? But then simultaneously, there's also companies that I don't know. Maybe this is how they get me. They're like, we care about you. I'm like, okay, I mean, buy yourself.
David, when you go to the strip club and the girl whispering in your ear that, you know, do you really be like, damn, she really loves me? Like, she really cares about what I'm saying, how my day was going. It's like, Daddy, I want you to smile for me. Do you really be like, damn, like she really wants to see me happy? Like, I'm just wondering, like, how far does this go?
I've never been in that situation to answer that question, but
no comment.
You know what? Okay, here's the way I will say it. I do think that let's talk about in the future. Let's not talk about right now.
Okay,
I think we should live in a world the same way you were talking about how we need to elevate ourselves, we need to have power structures, we need to create platforms. I want to live in a world where I can trust the values that companies stand by. But I think companies will always reveal themselves. It's the exact same with Basecamp, right? Because when they came out and said this thing, it's very clear where they stand. It's 100% clear. It's not even ambiguous. By saying what they said in the way that they said it, you know who this supports and who it does not support. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's why people left. Like, you know who's actually welcome and who is not welcome. If you're gonna refuse to talk about things that affect me as an employee, and you're saying that I can't even bring all of those things into the workplace, literally just after it's basically we're tired of hearing about all this, you know, Trayvon Martin, all this Brown, all this stuff. Like, please leave me alone. I'm just trying to have my coffee and do my work. I don't know why you're disturbing me with all this Black Lives Matter stuff. That's what it sounded like. Mm-hmm. So, but what I'm saying is, I think there's a lot of companies that are very transparent about that, and there's also a few companies that go out of their way to make statements that they don't need to. And what I would like to see is, if you're gonna go out of your way, if you're putting yourself out on a limb, doing stuff that you don't need to do, to tell certain groups of people that you care about them, that you should stand by that. That's what I think.
It's fair. I don't know how you can expect. I don't know, you know, that's a realistic expectation, but it's fair.
I'm not saying, I believe anything you tell me. I'm just saying, don't tell me stuff. Don't say it if you're not going to stand by it. Like, there was no need. I was going to buy Nike shoes anyway.
Right?
My house is full of Apple stuff now. I don't even like Apple. I've bought all your products. You don't need to now come and tell me about Black Lives Matter. But if you're going to do it, you should back it up. That's what I'm saying.
I hear you. But hey, that's, again, it's power. If you want Apple to really give a fuck about some Black Lives Matter, you got to put Dr. Umar and
Yeah.
Jesse Jackson. You gotta put like a bunch of niggas on the like the board, and then you know what I mean. Then you'll really get.
Tuma's gonna be on the Apple board.
You know what I mean? Then you'll get like you'll see where their values really lie. But I mean, that's just it's just I'm cracking jokes, but it's just so funny to me, man. Like the whole like in the last few years, and when Obama was president, I remember that happened a lot too, because people were like, oh well, this means now that the power is like, it doesn't really mean anything. Like I don't know. I guess I've just always been a person that I've always been a really practical person. That's the one thing I can say about myself from when I was a child. Like instead of listening to what people said, I've always been the type of person that watched what people did and took my cues that way. Like, so, for me, like the whole, I'm not a good person because I got some Nike boxes like right behind me here. I just bought some Nikes the other day. But I was gonna say, like, hey, for me, I love Nikes because that's the cool shit. That's been the cool shit since I've been a kid. Like they have the dopest commercials. They have the best athletes on their brand. I love Nike. Them putting that Kaepernick commercial out there, acting like they're fighting on my behalf, it never even registered with me because I knew it was bullshit from the jump. Like I was just like, oh, okay, well. I didn't even think I was the target audience for that, but apparently I see who the target audience was because I was like, all right, well, so somebody loves this. Like,
wait, all right. So if you're saying you're not the target audience, then who do you think they were directing that stuff to?
David, clearly.
No. Okay, let me be honest. A lot of that stuff is directed to the virtue signal. It's the same way that you were saying the white liberal group, the people that like to feel good about stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, all right. Let's wrap up then. Okay, so final thoughts on, I guess, just woke culture in general and cancellation. Who gets cancelled? Who doesn't get cancelled?
So I definitely think. By the way, the whole woke thing, especially white people, I don't allow white people to use the word woke around me unless they tell me they've seen higher learning. Because that's literally my very next question every time. Like, yeah, this super woke dude. I'm like, yeah, like from higher learning. Like, if they say, what's that? Then we're done. The conversation is moving on. I'm like, yeah, bro, like, you don't even know what you're talking. Like, so unless they've seen higher learning, I do not allow white people to use the word woke around me. So
wait, is Higher Learning a movie?
Yeah.
Mad. Yeah,
bro, go watch it right. No, stop.
You now.
Go watch it.
Jide said you're cancelled.
No. But I can accept it because it came out in like 95, Gabriel. So I understand if you're like, oh, I never seen it and whatever. Take an hour and a half out of your day. Wherever you guys pirate your movies from, go pirate Higher Learning. Then you'll get a full appreciation for the term stay woke. You know what I'm saying? And then you'll be like, okay, now I'm like, whatever, right? So I don't even allow white people to use the term woke around me but I do think that quote unquote, that type of aggressive liberal culture, that type of aggressive progressive culture, I do think that does exist. Obviously, it's a thing, clearly. However, I don't think cancel culture exists in that way, because to me, cancel culture only happens when powerful people want you canceled, and usually you don't find young people or progressives in positions of power. So for me, I don't really think cancel culture is a thing, and I don't so that's just me.
Fair. All right, cool. Thank you for sharing and trying to expose me, even though it didn't work.
You're trying to get
you also tried to demonetize my video to make sure that I don't get my Nike deal. But
no, hold on, you're the perfect. Oh, the Nike, give him some money, bro, because he will protect the brand. Let me tell y'all right now, like he will.
It's so funny, it wasn't a proper deal, but they gave me some money for, when actually I should have given this disclaimer before. It's completely unrelated. But actually, again, last summer when I was doing that walk to raise money for some like Black Lives Matter, Black organizations and stuff, Nike gave me some money.
Exactly. Hey, give him some more. Y'all need to give him some more. You know what I mean?
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Peace.